This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the TEAM MARTEK Hour, Joe Martek.
340-1590, 340-1590. It's the Dan and Joe and Alan Love Show.
That's right.
Special guest, retired attorney from the great state of Wisconsin, usually frozen. In fact, I think you're still frozen, aren't you, Alan?
We call it the Great White North.
The Great White North, yeah. I do remember a lot of that. You know, I think I told you that my last 3 years in Michigan, I was up in the northwestern Lower Peninsula. And by April 1st, I'm not exaggerating, we had 6 feet of snow on the flat, plus drifts.
But who would live there?
Well, I did. Because we don't know.
Why do they live there is the question. These are alpine type people who settled these places. They're,
That's it.
They're Norwegian and
well, they
Germans.
The Finns.
They know what to do with that cold land.
Well,
they know
what
they make cheese.
You make cheese.
Well, I'm telling you what, there was factories and there was employment. Of course, we had a moose lodge and elks. That's employment.
Of course.
That's entertainment too, because there ain't anything else to do.
Well, of course.
You have to be into winter sports.
All I know is
you have to really be into winter sports because
winter
lasts a long time.
There was oftentimes too much snow even for snowmobiles because it was so deep. You couldn't.
I lived in a tiny little town. It was Pelican Lake, Wisconsin, which is the biggest town closest to us is Rhinelander, which is very, very small.
Right.
Way up there in northern Wisconsin. And we got snowed in the winter. We would put a flag out for them to plow our driveway.
Yeah, right.
The plow would bring our groceries.
Yeah.
And we'd settle up the bill at the end when we would thaw.
At the end of the
when
season?
we would thaw.
Well, don't you remember these things? They had these posts along the road that were like 20 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
So that they would know where to plow because the posts would get covered up. They were steel bars.
And the other thing is a lot of the houses,
I don't remember that.
No.
People don't, they're houses that aren't year-round houses. So half of the people, more than half of the people aren't even there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Nancy, my wife, she had a good friend, and they bought a home in West Yellowstone area.
Yeah, beautiful.
And they had like a motel, but they left every winter because the snow was on top of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, how could someone who lived in Florida move to that?
You really need a change.
First of all, you're assuming people who have reasonable intelligence.
Well, they were nice, people. I
didn't say
they didn't live there, Joe. They went to California for the winter. But why would you live around even that? I just don't understand. That.
Well, first of all, if you're born and raised in it, you don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
But as soon as you look at a magazine of Florida or anything, you know better.
Well, that's what happened.
Some people say they hate it hot, though.
They say that.
Oh, it's too hot.
It's only too hot if you have no AC, which, as I've said before, I went all through school.
Yeah, down
Never
there.
had AC.
Right.
So you can get by.
But back then, that's why those houses were so low slung, and they had the big overhangs over the roofs.
We had terrazzo floors to lay on.
Right. Yep.
And let me tell you something else. They had was big ceiling fans, attic fans that sucked up the when there was no wind. Monster.
Well,
boy,
my dad had purchased a fan where they put a block of dry ice in.
Yeah.
And it would blow and that cool air, and then in the morning I'd have to go dump the water.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was it was redneck engineering.
340
the original swamp cooler.
The original swamp cooler.
340-1590, 340-1590. Back in '04, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, and Joe Martek, financial advisor, said, let's start doing radio shows so we can share our individual knowledge with people that cumulatively we have lots of it. Individually, we are somewhat one-dimensional.
We struggle.
And it worked very well, and we didn't have a clue how long those shows would last. In fact, we probably guessed a couple, 3 months, and all of a sudden, 14 years later, we're still doing these shows.
Well, we said we'd give it a shot and see how it works.
Yep. So today, we also have added Ms. Victoria Lloyd, who is Remax of Stewart, because the debacle of real estate during the Great Recession happened. And We also added Mr. Mike Paulus, mortgage broker. And speaking of one of the original
No,
three
don't yet.
cast
He doesn't have a microphone. Give him a chance.
Give him a chance, but he doesn't. He can grunt.
He just came to gloat over Kavanaugh. We know why
That's
he
it, that's
showed
it.
up.
He's going to sound like he's way in the back of the room.
Well, listen.
That's
We
good.
like Greg way in the back of the room. You know that's
Like background.
Don't you think attorneys should always be way in the back of the room?
No, there you go. He's almost set up.
Oh,
I
you
don't
even get a
think so,
pad
Joe.
under your
There we
microphone,
go.
Greg. I mean,
Yep,
you're
yep.
special.
I'm official.
This is it. So
Okay.
we all started. And if I remember right, Greg, when we started doing the shows, Dan and I got together first, and I came to you, and you said, "Why?"
I'm still wondering that.
You're still wondering. There was a situation. Client of mine, divorced, child, ex-husband. Ex-husband dies. Daughter is beneficiary of his life insurance and probably his 401k or other things that he may have.
Okay.
However, because they're divorced, is she the legal guardian for that child?
How old's the child?
The child's like 7 or 8.
She would be, yeah.
But there's also a brother involved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the brother is involved in the life insurance contract,
Well, you didn't say that.
I'm
You
asking.
didn't say that. And how would he be involved anyway?
As a
he
beneficiary.
contingent beneficiary.
As a
He could be
contingent
that.
beneficiary.
Or he
be that.
could be a primary on a 50-50. You'd have to
Could be,
read how the
could be.
policy was set up.
So she was into a bit of a quandary because she called the insurance company, and now she's got to prove they were married. She got to prove paternity. She's got to prove different things for this child that she actually is the legitimate mother,
Shouldn't be all that hard, right?
No.
A birth
Should be pretty
certificate.
easy.
Yeah.
right? But then they were saying it would probably take a period of time. So she called me, and I said, call them back and say, how much time will it take if you get an attorney? They said, less. Well, you know, and there it came, Greg. And I just said, call Greg Fasula and let him walk you through it. He can send the letters in, and he can do the verification process because obviously you have more clout than the average person who is not objecting.
But you know that should not be the case.
Well, I didn't say it.
Shouldn't be the case.
If the life insurance company says to me, Dan, these are the hoops you have to jump through in order for us to pay you. You need to prove who you were, prove you're the legal guardian, all X, Y, and Z, and I give
Right.
them everything they want.
Well, here comes a question now.
Shouldn't take any longer.
No, wait a minute. You're assuming that the life insurance company gave her all of that information.
Right.
I would request it.
No, but you would because you're in the business. Some people don't know
Yeah.
the question to ask.
Yeah, for you and I, Dan, that doesn't seem like
It's
it
academic.
should be all that difficult.
Anytime I deal with anything that they want stuff, I always say, hey, email me the things you want, or if there's forms
Here we
that I
go
need
again.
to fill
Back
out,
again. 'cause
email them to
you're,
me.
You're in the
Right.
business. You're not too young.
Right.
But I mean, on
In fact,
anything
you're
I
really
do.
old.
I'm really
you do
old.
it all the time.
And
right?
why do I do that? Because I have, just like you said, I have had people say, here's what I need.
Yep.
I send it to them, and they go, oh, I need this. I need this. I
Yep.
need that. So now I say up front, send me everything that I'm going to have to fill out so this doesn't take forever.
But
when
there
it comes
became-
to paying out money, it's
Well,
a
there
little
became
more
there became the
difficult.
situation. This lady is a United States citizen, but she's Hispanic, so she's got understanding the law. One, if you're not in the business, how do you know it?
Right.
The situation was, yes, I can help her, but most importantly, you could make this thing happen much quicker. And she's deathly afraid that the brother would be able to become the guardian for this child. Say that she didn't find out about it at all, and are they going to look for the mother of this child, or are they just going to go into the policy and say the brother was in and he's a blood relative and make him guardian for this child?
How would the
I wouldn't
courts
think so.
make
Yeah.
him the guardian
I didn't
if
say the courts-
she's the real mother?
Yeah, and how would they
But
be able
how
to
would they
release
know
that
she
to a
is that
brother?
there is even a mother involved?
Well, I'm assuming there's a birth certificate.
No, listen to me.
Was she born under a cactus plant in the
No.
desert coming over
Is
here?
she the real mother?
Yeah, but point I'm trying to say.
Somewhere along the way she
if
lost guardianship.
If she did not know that her ex-husband died, and the beneficiaries were the brother and the daughter.
Well, then the brother would get the money until the daughter was made aware of it.
There you go. So
Well,
now the brother also could do something which is called abscond with the money.
But he shouldn't be the child's guardian.
I
he
say
would have to
shouldn't.
go to
Listen to
through
me.
the court
You
process.
understand what you're saying? Shouldn't. Because you understand the law, and you understand, Dan, and I do. All I'm trying to say is the average person.
If I was a father of a child and I said, and this is the only way it could happen in my opinion, Joe, and I said, upon my death, I want half of my money to go to my child,
Right.
and the other half to go to my brother.
Right.
And that's the only way the brother could get involved in this at all,
Right.
is if he was a designated beneficiary.
Exactly.
All right?
Wouldn't he get his share?
He would only get his share. He
Right.
wouldn't get the kid's share.
The
Right.
key. Now, who would get the kid's share?
It would sit in
kid.
limbo until the kid, because you said, what if she didn't know? That money would sit in limbo until somebody made a bona fide claim against it.
Okay, so now if he made a claim against it, and
He
made
couldn't get it. He
made
couldn't get
himself the guardian.
You can't make yourself a guardian. You have to be
They got to go to the
court-appointed.
courts, right?
He would have to, yeah, because he would have to serve her and
And he'd have to prove that the mother
petition-
was unfit and he was.
Right.
I mean,
There
it's
you
not
go.
so easy.
But couldn't that just all happen without anybody really knowing it? If he just went to the court system and said, "Hey, look, this is the
This isn't a Shirley Temple
This
movie where
is-
you
Yeah,
can
I
do all
don't
that
think so.
stuff. This
No.
is-
He would have
you
to
can't
serve
do
the
that.
mother. She's
Okay.
an interested party.
What if he said the mother was dead, or the mother? We don't know who the
we don't-
mother is.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
that's fraud.
well, of course that's fraud.
Yeah, but once that money's transferred, then
Ideally, here's who we should be worried about. We should be worried about this child.
are they worried about the money or the
Dan,
kid?
Where's
Yeah.
that money going
I-
to go
I-
till she turns 18? Even
understand
if the
all-
mom gets it, does she have the ability to go hog wild and spend it all?
Well, but
no, it should be put in a trust for that child's
Well,
benefit.
yeah, you've got a
Should have
Unified
been-
Gift of Minors Act. Obviously, the account would be set up in the child's name, which happens regularly.
That's how it should be done.
Well,
Yeah.
it's almost always set up that way.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, if this client doesn't understand all of these rules, what you're saying is you're talking from experience that you know all this stuff. I'm talking, I've got a person that is totally ignorant of all of the stuff
Then
that we
she
take for
needs to
granted.
talk to Greg.
There you go.
Would the
Greg.
court-
So I gave her your name. And
I know
she-
that, and yeah, we've been trying to.
you'll catch
connect.
up with her.
It's like I had a client that came in, and she wanted to buy life insurance for her husband, and they were Hispanic, and she was asking some questions.
Does he know that?
Yeah, and she goes, well, if he got killed in a bar fight, would he be covered? I go, yeah.
Okay, how soon after I pay the premium can that happen?
And I'm thinking, oh my,
Because Omar's got the
Interesting
knife.
question.
yeah.
Well, hey, listen, if she can get away with it and get rid of him, there
Now,
have been a few
back
successful.
to the kid. Would the court system step in and just take
If-
control if they couldn't find this mother? I mean, wouldn't they?
Well, the
they'd
kid's
work
got to
it
be
out.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Possibly through
the
guardianship
key is this.
Guardian-
proceeding.
yeah.
Why don't you apply to be guardian, Joe?
Yeah, boy. See,
You're looking for a job.
Listen, the only Spanish I know is cerveza, por favor, and baño.
Dos.
Por favor.
So,
Dos. Cerveza.
Dos cerveza.
Bring two.
Dos Equis.
so how could have we avoided that from the beginning, right? You don't make a minor your beneficiary. You could set up a trust,
Let
right?
me just
where
tell you
the
this,
trust
people
is
do
the
it all the
beneficiary.
time. They say, okay, I don't like my children. I want my grandchildren to be the beneficiary. So we put them down. That's what they want.
Yeah, I know. People do it all the
Constantly.
time.
Now, if they
Yeah.
die before that child is of age,
Yeah.
now that money has to go into a special account, Unified Gift of Minors Act, whatever. Now, we also have to have somebody in charge of that account, which would
Custodian.
be the guardian,
Yeah.
right?
Well-
Which is usually a spouse or a parent or somebody.
A lawyer,
Could be a lawyer.
a banker.
Right.
But people just don't go establish a trust and make the trust the beneficiary for the kids. Have you ever?
And Joe, therein
You
lies.
really
Well,
have
I
to
mean,
have-
if it's a very young child and it's a significant amount of
Significant
money,
amount of money.
why wouldn't you?
But therein
Well,
lies the
back
difference
again to
between
ignorance, Greg.
getting your will from Staples
Yeah.
and getting your will from an attorney.
You see, what we're doing right here is not quite 100 years. You're not old enough yet. But we got Alan here. We got 200 years of experience sitting here. So these things we've gone through, but the average person doesn't have a clue.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the reason we have guys like Dan and guys like you, attorneys, and even guys like Joe Martek, and even a retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin who didn't fall asleep yet.
No, I'm waiting to cross-examine Mr. Fasula this morning.
Here we go. Now
No,
we're going
but
to talk politics.
Yes,
this is why we have guardianship procedures.
Of course.
I mean, and they're busy because minors becoming, getting assets that
And there's
way.
nothing wrong with guardianship procedures.
No.
And you try to protect
Nope.
your family. I mean, I'll tell you, I have a wonderful letter that was written to me many years ago. I had a friend of mine I went to church with. We were talking about life insurance, and he had 3 children. They were young, and I said, "Hey, what would something happen to your wife? What would you do?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, it never crossed his mind."
Yeah.
Well, they moved away. He bought a life insurance policy on himself and his wife, and as you know where I'm headed, the wife came down with cancer and died, and the kids were small, and he got enough money where he could, quit his job, work out of his home, and take care of his family. So, when you sit down to do planning,
Sure.
Yeah.
it's awfully hard to know, because we usually say we're going to put all the money on the dad,
Yeah.
Of course.
but you never know.
I know, you never know. And how often do you see young people? I don't see a whole lot of young people coming in and doing wills and setting up
Very
trusts
rare.
or setting
Very
up
rare.
guardianship.
No.
It's unusual.
Guardianships through the trust. You can do a
If-
pre-need guardian.
If you have a professional couple making substantial money with little children, all of a sudden they're more conscious of these circumstances than Joe Lunch Pail guy who just says, "Hey, that happens. My
Yeah.
brother will take care of them."
Yeah.
I'm serious. This
Yeah,
is not abnormal.
That's true. That's true. They don't realize when you think estate planning,
No.
it can be
Yeah.
small stuff.
Well, my daughter had somebody named as guardian for her children in case something happened to her. Well, then she got into a disagreement with the guardian on how children are raised. So now the guardian has been removed and it becomes somebody else. Now, as long as she stays alive, that's never going to be the problem.
Yeah.
But
Like a pre-need guardian.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
what
if you can
did?
trust your kids with them, you should be able to trust your money with them.
Of
so
course.
you got to, don't
well,
just.
even more so.
Well, you know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be something you take lightly.
Well,
Yeah, but-
you also get people who would go, well, how am I going to take care of your kids if you don't give me your money?
Right. And you say, well,
Yeah,
I will.
and you
Here's
can
what I'm gonna do.
separate that out too. You can separate the person from the funds and,
Sure, of
and
course.
just have someone in charge of the funds to delegate that money.
All of these things
To the
are
guardian.
academic stuff for you, an attorney, because this is part of your education to understand and protect the needs and rights of these children to make sure they're protected, which is what the parents wanted in the first place, but how to phrase it properly and how to document it
Now, is
properly.
that going back to the Coogan Act?
Who?
The Coogan Act. Remember Jackie Coogan, the little childhood star whose parents
Boy, are you
basically.
old.
I'm old.
Jackie
Okay.
Coogan.
Yeah.
Alan, do you remember
I-
Jackie Coogan?
Yes, I do.
I have I think I've
He was
heard
the
of
little
this.
rascal, so his parents
Yeah.
spent all of his money. And when he sued, that's where they came up with the Coogan Act, saying someone has to be responsible. You just can't treat your children like this. So there's rules and regulations. You may not abide by them, but if you get in trouble, you can get in
There
trouble.
you go. Well, how often do you hear about these child stars, actors, and the parents absconding with the money?
Hey, my kid, my money.
Yeah. But
I
when
would
you're
think-
8 and 10 and
yeah.
12 years old, what do you know?
You supported the family.
Exactly.
Well, you are supporting the family.
Yeah.
Well, your parents are your managers, and they're your money managers. They're everything. Well, they might get overpaid, like 99%
Yeah.
of the money.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, if you follow some of that, you can fire them.
Of course.
How many times have we seen that happen?
But restitution.
At least you would inherit everything they own
Yeah.
that you help pay for.
Restitution. could be
It's
a
still
big
there,
part.
yeah.
Yeah, but if they spend it on wine and travel and all that
Yeah.
kind of good stuff, it's hard to get that back.
That's true.
It's that lifestyle.
Those trips to Tuscany are tough. 340-50. I'm talking about wine, Greg. 340.
I know. I know what you're talking about.
didn't.
And food.
Yeah. 3-4. And my goal is before I die, I want to spend a month in Italy with no agenda and rent a car and just go.
Well, you should
and
do
Tuscany.
that. You better do it soon.
No,
gotta do it
not a
pretty
car. You need a Vespa.
Back up. I think I better put it on the calendar
You better
now.
do that soon.
340-1590, 340-1590. So that was just a relatively new subject that I think a lot of our, quote, grandparents that might listen to the show might re-look at the way beneficiaries are designated for grandkids or great-grandkids and who is going to be in charge of that money.
Yeah.
And parents of young children should also know, if you're relatively young, let's say in your mid-30s or
Right.
under, you can get an excellent 20-year level term policy, which means
For
the
next to
premium
nothing.
won't go up for 20 years. Get your kids grown, and then if you need to do something else as you get older, you can rethink it, but it takes that burden off.
Well, even if you're a single parent, if you're raising a minor child and you're a single parent, your beneficiary would be your kid.
Yeah.
Well, but here comes again what Greg is saying. If you make that just your child, if you think this through all the way, who is going to be in charge of that child in
Right.
case you do die? So very often it can be phrased in such a way to take care of that situation.
And if you become a single parent by a divorce, many times the court will come in and say to the father, let's say, I don't know why I'm throwing that out, but that's who they usually say to the father, you must buy life insurance to protect your obligation in case you
Part of
die
the
before
divorce
this
settlement.
child turns 18.
Right.
So there are things that can be done to help protect our children,
340-1590, 340-1590. Other than that, what were you going to grill?
Mr. Fasula.
Who's going to grill Greg?
Good, Greg.
Greg, aren't you glad you came?
This is Greg. You're on the grill again.
Okay.
Do you have stripes on your back?
I don't want to talk about the allegation regarding Judge Kavanaugh, but as an
You didn't want to
attorney
talk about
But
it?
he's
You said-
going to.
As a no,
in a backhanded way.
as
In a backhanded
former
way.
Prosecutor, what I'd like to know is what I'd like to know is how you feel about the process. To me, I think our legal system is being toyed with in a way that's detrimental long term for the country. And what I'm getting at is the fact, as an example, when Senator Feinstein got the letter and held it for a period of time, rather than going to Chairman Grassley and saying, look what I've got, what should we do about it, or what's your thought?
Well, I have no problem with the allegations themselves.
Neither do
I mean, look at, we have Bill Cosby. He just got 3 to 10 for things
But
that
he's not
happened
going for
30-some
They
years
had
ago.
proof.
He's not going to the Supreme Court.
Exactly. So there should be a lower standard.
Point I'm trying to say is no problem with the allegation. Are you saying, Alan, that the procedure?
Right. I'm talking procedurally, and as far as the allegation, as a former prosecutor, you come up with an allegation like that, my initial reaction is, okay, where's the evidence? You don't have the evidence yet? You can't prove it? I'm not charging.
Okay, but
But
they're not.
they're not doing that.
This is not a court of law.
No.
Right.
It's a court of
And-
opinion.
Well, the thing is, too, though, if this was important, I mean, let's just say that he did do what she's accusing, shouldn't Feinstein have come up with that letter right away
Well, here's the
to
thing.
protect
Grassley,
the system?
Grassley opened up with a position of weakness, in my opinion. He allowed fellow members of that committee to interrupt one after another, object, did not say, hey, if you don't get recognized by the chair and you want to blurt out, the sergeant of arms are going to escort you out.
So you're talking procedure.
We're talking about procedure. He allowed the gallery to interrupt. He didn't say one more interruption, and I'm clearing the gallery. The gallery is a consideration and a courtesy to you. You're not entitled
But
to
that
sit out
didn't
here.
answer Alan's question. though.
But
As
they set the table. They set the table for manipulation. He allowed it to happen, so I'm not surprised that they pulled out a trump card, pardon the pun, at the end and said, ho, 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 even though it's over, we're now throwing this on the table.
But
So
to protect the system, though, shouldn't she have just come out right out with it right away as soon as she got it? To protect the
Well,
whole
but there's-
system.
But why would she? It's not in her. It's not in the
There you
Democrats'
go.
best interest. It was in their interest to hold it, to continue to
Well, she-
allow a way to convolute the hearings and delay. That's their goal. Don't kid yourself.
But Alan was saying it didn't break a law by anything.
No.
Maybe a, listen, in defense of both sides, one side postpones if it's in their favor, the other side postpones if
Don't
it's
you
in
ever
their
remember watching Perry Mason and right at the end he throws that fact out there? Well, that's what she did. She waited till the end and
That's
said,
because she watched Perry Mason.
"Yumba, here we go. I got you."
So Alan is, your former prosecutor. So how do you prove those allegations? you don't just take he said, she said like the
Right.
Republicans want to do.
Right.
You investigate. You talk to witnesses. You maybe get the FBI involved. Why aren't they getting the FBI involved? Why? Because my opinion is because it's a crime to lie to the FBI, and she wants to talk to the FBI. Guess who doesn't? You know,
Bill Clinton.
Well, no, but
to
stay
me,
with this picture right
I don't
now.
think she'll show.
Well, we don't know. The key is this: the FBI is not involved.
right.
What they're having now is strictly
Which they could and should be.
Well, the key thing they're saying on the other side is that this guy's been investigated by the FBI 6 times or 5 times over the years.
And this case
But
is a
not
case
this.
that would be handled by local jurisdiction. It's not within the realm of what the FBI does. So to
Well-
request it, to say, I'm going to request it, I'm going to set the terms, is absurd.
But they investigated Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, didn't they?
And what
I
happened?
mean,
They had plenty of time.
Yes, but
who they don't have plenty
Well,
of time now?
No, they don't, because the
Why
key
don't
is,
they?
well, you know why. Because
they're back
they,
in session
they
on
want
October
to make
1st.
sure that he is there for the new
Yeah.
session. They want to make sure that the decision is made just in case, just like the Democrats want their agenda. If I was a Republican, I would say get him in, because if you lose the House or in the Senate, you're not going to have this green light that you have. Don't kid
It doesn't
yourself. That's
matter.
an opportunity.
Well, of course
I
it
mean,
is. This isn't it. There's 2 agendas.
It would take the FBI maybe a few days, a couple weeks at most, to
It
to
should
do
have
a
been
good
settled last
investigation.
week.
Well, it could have been. It could have taken them 6 months. I mean, here we go again with politics.
Coulda, shoulda,
It's
woulda.
politics. This time limit is
all
arbitrary.
It's
So
all
we
politics.
all
all
know
about
that
politics.
the Democrats have a very, very unique stick-to-itiveness. In other words, they are a cohesive bunch. They get stuff done even though they're not in charge of the House or the Senate. They find ways to block and stop
Okay.
until they get their shot. The Republicans are too weak in many cases.
But
and
didn't the
they
Republicans
infuriate
block
me.
the nomination that Obama made?
They did it
They
based
did.
on
For
the
a year.
Democratic. They did it based on the Democratic position that says you can't do it in the last year of the presidency. All they did was follow suit. That's all they
That was
did.
an old precedent, right?
So they didn't invent it. They just
Yeah.
carried suit with it.
So now here comes the $64,000 question. They're not going to do an FBI investigation. They're going to do this interview with 2 different people interviewing this woman. And is it a closed hearing? It looks like it. But they're not
Joseph,
for
every
sure.
Democrat has already said,
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what you say. I don't care how you paint the picture. I've already decided. I'm voting no.
Well, we know that. So it's going to be a straight party vote unless a couple of Republicans side with the
And
Democrats.
then they should lose their seat.
Well, no. See, that's only because you want this to happen, and I agree with you. However,
If you can't do what I want you to do and I put you in office to do it, you need to get out.
Who
now
are those
if
2
the-
women? There's 2 women, Maine and
there's a new one, right?
Alaska. Maine and Alaska. They're Republicans who
Yeah,
are
yeah.
really not Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's enough evidence against this guy, he
Name
shouldn't
one.
be in there. He
Name
shouldn't
one.
be in
You,
there.
you
We don't-
can't
we don't
name
know.
a
Well, we're
shred
going to
of
listen to
evidence.
her testimony.
She doesn't
and-
remember
and she
where,
did
when. What was the old
She does
saying in the
remember.
newspaper?
She did
you need to
a-
know who, what, where, when, and how.
And she passed
Why?
the lie detector test.
Well, you know what?
I'd like
if
to
you
see
go
that
to
happen
If you
again.
go to a shrink, all right, and you're not sure, and he implants thoughts, your mind can pass anything if you truly believe it. Doesn't mean it happened.
Yeah,
Let
but
me
why
ask
did
you,
she
I'm-
run and do that? Why did she right away run and do that?
Well, why did she
Why
run
did she scrub
and
her,
wipe out
her
scrub her all
her
of her
social
social
media?
media? It was all pre-planned.
It's not pre-planned
Sure it
because
is.
she had
Well, that's
mentioned
why it
this
took-
years and years ago. She
To
had-
who?
They said that she mentioned it to a marriage counselor like 12 years ago or something.
In 2010, I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't hear that?
Yeah.
I did when she got
Well,
divorced.
Then it's obviously it's
But no
not just
names,
for
and she
this
couldn't put names
proceeding.
together. The counselor helped her figure out who it
Well,
was.
here comes the 64th. If they did a lie detector test, we don't even know what the questions were.
And who
Exactly.
administered it.
Exactly.
Well, how do we find out that they
don't know.
call that person as a witness to this
Exactly.
hearing?
And they might.
And I doubt it.
Well,
I
'Cause
doubt
they
it.
don't
I
want to
doubt
hear
it
the
too.
truth.
we don't know what the truth is. You see this?
They don't want to
Who's they?
investigate it fully. They want a he said, she said situation.
Of course.
So they
Here
can,
comes the $64,000 question. Should this thing have come up at all?
Well, of course it should. We're
Well,
talking
then
about
why
the
was it
Supreme
held
Court.
for 6 or 7 weeks before it was
And why
presented?
it didn't bother her for
Because
30
it
years.
was politically
And why
in
when he
your
was
favor.
judge for Court of Appeals, which is an unbelievably high position, didn't it come up then?
That was within the time frame that she went to her shrink or her
What I'm trying to say is,
counselor or whatever.
it does look a bit contrived, Greg. You got to say that.
And one other thing, Greg, how does a person like Judge Kavanaugh get appointed to one of the Circuit Court of Appeals in this country, one of the 9 circuits, and gets appointed by votes of like 96-2, and all of a sudden he's the worst thing that's out there
Well,
for
that's
the
my
Supreme
point.
Court?
He's been vetted by the FBI, and why? Again, listen, I'm looking for contrived, and let's assume it is, and that's fine. Maybe she's getting $5 million. She's going to retire to Italy, and maybe it's legitimate.
Look, Joe, here's what I truly believe. The Democratic Party, for many, many, many decades, has utilized the court system to implement law, which is not their position. Their job is not to implement law, but they did. So now you have a justice who is retiring, who has been the swing vote back and forth, sort of in the middle, not sure where he's going to go, and he's retiring. And their presumption is this guy is going to be more conservative. We don't want him.
We're going to know
That's
this.
the bottom
Is
line.
it Tuesday next week? They're going to do this hearing
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. Oh, that's right. And then
And
they're
they're
going to have
supposed
a
to vote
vote
on
on
Friday.
Right.
I got you. Yeah. Well, you know.
And if he says these were never it was never the intention of the court to make law, and as these things come up again, he says that's not our position.
How about the part where, I can't take a train? No. Oh, I can't fly? No, I can't fly.
But I can fly to Hawaii.
Exactly.
The party that is in power, the other party in our country, was the loyal opposition party. But now the Democratic Party is more like the obstruction party.
See, now we're going
Well, don't forget, depending on what side of the table you're on, you're going to say that it's your turn to be the obstructionist. We're in power now.
Mm-hmm.
But Hillary Clinton
Exactly.
herself said, I am the head of the resistance.
Key is this.
I mean-
words.
Well,
were-
like Mitch O'Connell said
Yeah.
when Obama was president.
Yeah.
you know.
So we all take our turn.
Yeah, but the only thing is the difference is the Republicans are so weak that they do reach across the aisle. They think that that's still the way that it's done.
They don't deal in power. They
Okay.
want
Key
you to
thing
like
is,
them.
right now they have
Like-
the power, and
No,
may,
they wanna
may
like each other
exercise it,
in
they may
Washington.
not. But guess what? Hey, speaking of Rosenstein,
Well, before we move on, it's serious allegation. And I remember I
it's
did.
not a serious
you're
I
16
remember
years
I
old-
did stupid things in high school and stuff in college.
you
but
mean you copped a feel when
this-
you were in high school?
But this is a lot more
He
serious.
felt the cop.
This is a lot more serious than what she's saying that he did.
Well, what she said.
What did she say?
She
Do
got,
you know what she said?
We'll
No.
know exactly tomorrow, but I have a
She
gist
said
of what
basically they were
what he
in
did.
bed and he was trying to,
He had his hand
Yeah.
over her mouth.
and he put his hand over her mouth, but
Mhm.
she was in bed with
Mhm.
him.
I
Okay.
see
was
now
in
the
bed.
first
Let me
story.
ask you.
Yes, she was.
She was in bed. He came in. Into
No,
the
no, no,
room.
no, no. Here's what I heard. I heard she was there. She was 15. She was looking for the restroom. They were in the hall and they pushed her in the bedroom. Two
Guys.
students.
Yeah.
Two minors.
Right.
They're all minors, I think, at the time. Weren't they all minors?
Well, they
Yeah,
I
no
mean,
one
I think
was
they were all
18.
minors.
Yeah.
So they pushed her on the bed, and then something happened where then they were like rolling around on the ground, like they were drunk and they were messing around, and she just got up and walked
Like
away.
playing Twister?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know. See, here comes the 64.
I don't think it was that kind of party.
We'll find out
Hey,
tomorrow.
in Catholic school, I got busted for copping a feel in middle school, in 8th grade.
But that's
It's not quite the
that's-
same thing, huh?
that's
You would
not
be
the same.
expelled today, Joseph.
Well, hey, my dad was proud of me. He didn't
They
know-
have
he
juvie
thought- he was
jail.
worried he was worried I was gay.
You're the other way.
Veronica, I have a question for you
Sure.
since you're the only female in the room.
Yeah.
Are the rules changing? Does a woman have a responsibility to go to authorities quickly after an unwanted incident happens?
Okay, here's the first thing.
Responsibility is not the right word.
At the time of this unwanted situation, there should be total outrage on the woman's part.
And the
you
parents.
push this person away from you if you don't want them near you. And if something inappropriate has happened, you go to authorities.
Here comes
But
a
if
sick.
you're a young
No,
girl,
no
like she's
excuses.
teenage and
No.
she's,
No, but
she's,
no
she's
excuse.
maybe
That's an
drinking and
excuse.
stuff, and at this party maybe she wasn't
Okay,
even
so she
supposed to
wait
been
then,
to.
Greg. She's drinking and stuff. She's going along with it, and then the next day she regrets what she did.
No, I'm just saying.
is
that's
it-
the
Has she been out
reason why
drinking and
she
doing
wouldn't
stuff for a
come
long
forward
time?
Is it
with
his
what-
fault?
Well,
Is
yeah,
this the
you know,
first time
listen.
she's been out drinking
I
and
will,
doing
I
stuff?
guarantee, I'm with you, Greg. Listen to me.
How is that
We've been
his
to
fault,
parties.
though?
We've been to parties
You
where
don't tell
young
your
girls had
parents
their
those
first
things.
drink because peer pressure is all there. Hey, listen, when you had your first beer, you probably threw up because it was disgusting. But we got through that.
I still don't drink beer.
Then you had your first bottle of Ripple.
Yes.
And Boone's Farm Apple.
Yes, Valley High.
The way that I
Valley.
remember it is 15-year-old girls were looking to get kissed by 16 and 17-year-old boys.
I got it. You'll get a kick
Especially
out of
at
this. I got
parties.
to tell you a true story. Well, they're all true stories. I hate it when people say, "I got to tell you a true story." That means everything else you say is a lie. Huh?
You
Anyway,
embellished a little.
so bartender friend of mine, she's got 3 sons, and her son is 16 years old now and driving a car, and she gets a call from the school cop, and says, "We need you to come in and talk about your son." So she's right away mad at her son for whatever he did. So she goes in, and a school cop meets her and says, "We got a bit of a problem with your son, and a friend of mine, who is another cop, has a daughter that's 14, and your son is driving his 14-year-old daughter around, and my friend the cop would really appreciate it if your son wouldn't do that." So the mother of the 16-year-old goes, "And this is why you called me in here? That cop can't control his daughter?" And then she said the magic line. The magic line. "Besides, my son would never touch a 14-year-old girl."
Well, she's in the car.
I'm telling you what.
She might be
when
But
we were
see-
16, those were the easy ones.
My mother said if I catch you in the car with somebody you're not supposed to be with, your
Yeah.
life is over.
I'm telling you, that was how you kept the girls out of trouble, because
And then you have to
temptation,
watch them.
temptation-
Well, didn't in this girl's yearbook have allegations of drunken parties, lewd and lascivious behavior in the yearbook and
Yeah,
stuff? And
one
and
of-
his too.
so it's like,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
when you, and I'm not saying they lived in a white privileged world, all right?
would.
But if you are a participant from both sides, you go to, they both go to exclusive boys and girls
Oh,
schools.
sure.
They have indulgent behavior. They have parents who turn a blind eye, and stuff happens.
But they also
And
know.
then you think sometime later, maybe this will help my agenda. After all, I have been a
Well, here comes-
liberal activist,
Yeah.
and this is my chance to do what I need to do for my party.
And that
I
$5
think
million
that's probably
in
what
that
happened.
Oh, and then her
overseas
brother
account doesn't
supposedly
hurt.
works for Fusion GPS.
That
I
doesn't
don't
mean
know.
it didn't
It-
happen.
I
But
heard
I thought
that too.
I was
And I'm
heard he
agreeing
was.
with you, Greg. It doesn't mean
Isn't
it
he
didn't
like
happen.
part of the
Right.
Russian collusion?
Here, but
Yeah.
when it looks as though it was all contrived as our side, that why wait 40 years when you could have got him for the Court of Appeals? You could have got him at another time period. This is not an unsophisticated, not intelligent woman. She's a college professor, PhD. I mean, this is a very sophisticated, educated person. Why now? Why now is
Because
the
the
60?
situation's more serious.
Because it's
now.
more advantageous for her position.
That's-
Listen, if you are so traumatized that you can't do certain things, you can't have a normal relationship with your husband, and you're
she's
looking,
not claiming
and
that.
yes, she did in her
No.
divorce. Yes,
in her divorce zone.
yes, absolutely.
Well-
So if you're saying I'm looking for a reason to justify my behavior, and I can't do this and I can't do that, if it was so traumatic, I would have thought, and once again, this is just my opinion, that you would have probably come out early on, like right after it happened, because it was so traumatic. And I would have gone to my dad and I would have said, "Dad, this is what happened at the party. I was drinking. I shouldn't have been, but
The
I was
kids are
there.
afraid of
What
their
should
dad
I
at
do?"
that age.
Yeah, but do you
too.
know what? She
No.
wasn't okay. So her clothes were still on. She was maybe. They had their hand over her mouth. Big for what? I mean, were they playing? Were they goofing around?
I know my
Were
They
wife
they all?
would have bit your finger
Okay.
if you
All
put
I
your
know
hand
is-
But
over her mouth.
she
My wives, when they divorced me, they didn't blame it on any other guy but me.
But what I'm saying
They
is,
were traumatized, Joe.
if this this traumatized her, but obviously she moved forward.
Well, guess what?
But
we are not going to
what
cure
does
this.
Until now.
What does traumatized? I mean, that's like a broad statement. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well,
It
like I
made-
said,
it
Hey, my
made me-
father traumatized me
My
all the
dad
time. when I was a
traumatized me
kid.
all the time.
15-year-old girls are looking to be kissed by 16 and 17-year-old boys.
That's what we used to always think.
Yeah.
That's what I always thought.
No, they are.
I used to say, do I have to kiss you first?
Well, the key. Listen, you know the drill. You come in so close, and you're waiting for them to close the
Of
deal.
course.
That's how I was always taught. You don't like.
You were
press.
taught?
Oh yeah, my dad said don't press the deal
Because you might get punched.
you might get punched. Offer. They'll come in if they want to kiss you. You'll know. You'll
That's it.
know.
Greg, do you remember that?
I remember.
Absolutely. You'll know that girl wants to kiss
Pretty
you.
basic
Absolutely.
rule. Pretty basic rule.
You notice we haven't had one phone call yet. Either the audience is
They're
riveted
traumatized. They're
or
traumatized.
traumatized.
They've
Right.
already called on the subject last Friday.
Mike hasn't called and Bulldog hasn't called. Are we broadcasting
I
live?
think, is this thing on?
340-1590, 340-1590. So Rosenstein, tomorrow, is that his last day, Greg?
Last day as what?
No,
That's
I
the
don't
question.
think so.
I
You
don't think
so. Neither
Hey,
does
Greg
Alan.
and I agree on something.
Yeah, yeah.
How about that?
So he's not going to get fired?
No.
Because if he said it in
To,
jest, like I think he did, just like some things are blown out of proportion. Now, if he said it to mean it, then he needs to be
No.
shuffled off.
That's his boss.
Point is,
I can't
he
give him
already
a
said it.
pass.
I think that he said it in jest. Didn't he say that? Or somebody said that?
It's too much
Well-
of a hot potato, but politically to fire.
Yeah. Anyway,
You don't have to fire him.
tomorrow's a
See,
big day.
I don't think
We got
Trump cares about
Rosenstein
that.
and-
Just take his power away.
True.
Yeah.
So you
Trump
can't be
doesn't
part
care.
of this. You can't be part of this investigation because it's tainted.
Well, the key is this: no such thing as any one person that's key to anything. The next person in line can continue the
Absolutely.
investigation regardless.
Everyone is replaceable.
Yeah,
You know,
everybody.
all of these people think they're way too important.
Yeah.
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 Well,
And that's
340-1590.
dangerous.
So tomorrow is a interesting day politically, and I look at it
Absolutely.
literally. Both of these circumstances are political, no doubt about it in my mind. 340-1590.
so this time next week we ought to have a pretty good show.
we should have a good show.
You know, another two team members, Victoria Lloyd from Remax Real Estate of Stewart and Mike Paulus, mortgage
broker are not here.
They're not here, but it's going to be an interesting afternoon because for the first time since the Federal Reserve, they may raise interest rates in September. That's never happened before.
In September never happened? Well,
No.
they're almost guaranteeing 97%. They're saying quarter point. Hey, Mike, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Thank you. What a fascinating, enjoyable topic today. I'm really enjoying it out here.
I'm glad you called in. Poor Greg is all by himself over. He's got his knife out. He's got his.
Hey,
around-
he's done pretty well today.
Greg,
Good
you know.
thing for me was I grew up in the free love era, and it was all good.
Yeah, but it was never free.
But watch
Well-
out, they'll hold it against you.
That's right.
Oh, man. Well, what I'm calling for today is some advice with all the lunacy and idiocy and things to try to absorb and handle. I've concluded the only way to keep from going crazy is to find a way to become stupid, and I wondered if you all could help me do that.
We're good at that.
Well, don't you have to go to law school first for that?
Maybe start watching The View.
Oh,
Maybe
Lord.
a couple of hours of
Yeah.
Kardashians at night or MTV.
I used to watch Ren and Stimpy for my dose of stupid behavior.
Mike, did you see the Sunday comics and the Stewart or Port St. Lucie News this week?
No.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, Dagwood and Blondie. So a plumber comes to the door, and it's a female plumber. And Dagwood couldn't handle the fact that it was a female plumber. He's trying to help her, wants to give her tools,
saw
and wants
that,
to
yeah.
do everything.
Yeah.
And then she finally says to him, hey, listen, why don't you go sit on the couch and watch a soap opera?
There you go.
Have some tea. and
So
watch a soap
have some
opera.
tea and watch a soap opera. And then
See,
coincidentally...
but even with the comics, there's that demasculinization of men.
Honestly, well, here's what happened. Yesterday, my hot water tank died, and I had a female plumber. Honestly. So, and I said to her, did you see that car? You need to get it and put it on your refrigerator.
Hey, women, listen, during World War II, look at all
Oh, they
the
did
jobs
everything.
that were traditionally done by men that women stepped up and did. Women are quite capable of doing all those things.
Hey, listen. Have
If
you
we
never
could
been,
only get along with each other, we could rule the world.
Women and men are different.
No, I mean women with women. If women could get along with other women,
they would
we
control
could rule the world.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
boy.
a comic, but there's an element of truth to
Of
that.
course there
That's why it's funny.
That's why it is funny, and that's why I said to her, "You need to get it and get it." Mine was in the trash already. I was going to dig it out for her, but I said, they're probably still selling them. Anyway, Mike, thanks for calling in, my man. Bulldog's on the phone. Let's give him a minute to pick on us too.
Just one quick second. I don't know if you all know there's a new product, musical breast implants.
No.
What tune does it play?
They're really catching on. It's for all the women who are sick of men staring at their breasts and not listening to them.
Okay, Mike.
All right. Well, good talking with you. Thank you. Now.
Bulldog, it's Joe. You're on the radio, Bulldog.
Hello,
Bulldog, you're on the radio, my man.
guys. Hey, Joe, I'm just looking at this whole Brent Kavanaugh thing, and I'm saying, Joe, between you and I, maybe Dan, I think Greg's a little too white bread to do that, and Alan doesn't remember it. But we all got past that we need to hide, in the closet.
Alan came in and says there's an 18-wheeler coming up with all his past documented.
But the thing is,
Thank
don't
you so
run
much.
You're
for
welcome.
Don't run for any office where your past gets scrutinized.
Hey, I'm telling
guys.
Here's the solution. Let's just elect women.
They have a past.
They have a past.
If I have a
Oh.
past,
No, is that
every
the
woman,
agenda?
every woman I've been with has a past. Then vice versa. If I got a past, they got a past.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
But you can't hold it against them
Well, you.
because they're survivors.
Hey.
See,
Ooh.
the whole gender.
Are you hearing that word more? I am.
discrimination.
I've heard it was. Never mind.
Yeah, yeah, I
If
know.
they've got to be
Survivor.
survivors of that.
Yeah.
Survivors. Yeah.
Other than that, Bulldog, hey, tomorrow's a red letter day. We got Rosenstein and we've got the hearing for on Kavanaugh's accusers. I guess there's more than one.
But are they going to have it where
Here's
we
the-
can hear it all?
They're-
or is
they're
all
not
gonna
gonna
be-
talk to the other
So
one.
it's like.
No.
It's all gonna be
Here's the thing
he
about
said, she said.
These
still.
so-called survivors are making it really difficult for people who have really had a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, no. That's for real people. That's Cosby stuff. And in that one, I 3 to 10. Excuse me, I would have done the 10, and I would have given him 3 and then 7 on house arrest because he's that old. But the guy's not going to do anything anymore. But he's damn guilty, and that's the wrong thing to do. So I'm all about that. The Brett Kavanaugh, back at 17 and everything, come on.
I know.
He's not even legal.
Yeah, well, there comes two sides to the coin. Are we responsible for our actions? Of course. Remember back in the coat room when I was in 8th grade feeling up the girls? I mean,
I don't remember.
I remember that.
Yeah,
The nun
yeah,
caught
but
me.
they were probably willing,
Well,
right?
Yeah, that's, well,
Or
not,
that's not
well,
what's
one of
being
them,
alleged here.
one was willing.
What was the other one's
The
name?
other one,
Right.
What
the
was
other
the other
one-
one's name?
The other one was jealous.
Jealous.
And Joe, watch it with these shows because these now go nationwide, worldwide because of TuneIn app.
Well, you know
And,
what, Bulldog? They're
And
gonna
they're archived
Some of
too.
your ghosts may come out of your
somebody's
closet.
going to come back and say, Joe, 8th grade, I'm now going to sue you.
There you go, Joe.
Hey, Bulldog,
All right.
give Mary
Take
Beth
care.
my best, and give her my sympathy.
Hey, Bulldog.
Yeah, and anybody to who you're dating, Joe.
Bye.
Yeah.
340-1590, 340-1590. Well, good. We had our two.
That's
faithful-
why we have statute of limitations, Joe.
Well, but see, this has nothing to do with a statute of limitations.
No, it doesn't.
It's for suing
I agree.
for damages. That's a different story. Or for criminal acts or whatever it might be.
No.
But this one is strictly, is this man qualified to be a Supreme Court
I
judge?
agree.
Absolutely is.
And
Yeah,
that's all
there-
this is about.
There is no statute of limitation on moral character.
On moral
Exactly.
character, correct. But it's not a case. It's not a court
Exactly.
thing. It's not a court situation.
Right.
So, well, guys, we had an intro.
He said moral character, and I thought of Bill Clinton.
That's
I'm sorry, that's just what popped into
that's-
my
No,
head.
wait a minute.
That's
Bill,
immoral
Bill Clinton
character.
did.
That just popped
Bill
into
Clinton,
my
immoral
head.
Bill
character.
Clinton taught us that oral sex is not sex.
That's right.
That's okay, right?
Well, I give him a
Uh-huh.
pass anyway, considering who he's married to. Just saying. I'm just saying.
Hey, all I know is there's always going to be two sides to every story. I don't care what the story is, or maybe what you say, three sides: your side, my side, and the truth.
Right.
So
When we talk about moral character, do we think about our president?
Well,
I don't.
really?
I
Of
knew what
course
his
not.
moral character was before I helped elect him.
Yeah,
But
I
you
don't
know, I
worry.
didn't-
I don't
I
worry
didn't
about
elect
his
him
moral
for-
character.
when I look
Pass.
at every single president that I can remember after Eisenhower, and I have no clue, but there were always scandals even that came out after. Look at Kennedy. Look at LBJ. Go on. Everyone had situations that came up.
Hey,
Not
we went to
everyone.
New York.
And I think
we
Not
went to this
everyone.
play called Hamilton.
Hamilton.
What's it based on? It's based upon him having an affair while his wife is out of town,
And I
has
get
a
a-
duel and gets killed.
Now, wait a
That's
minute.
how
You
far
have
back it
people
goes.
with high moral standards. You have the Reagan, you have the Bushes, you have
Yeah.
Obama. High moral standards. That's what we
Is
should
that
have in the
going
White
back
House.
to our
That's
Puritan
what we should have.
Obama.
Well, the key is this, and Greg, I often say this. Last time I walked on water, it was frozen.
It must have been in Michigan. It
It
wasn't
was in
here.
Michigan. But I'm trying to say is that I don't think there's a person alive that is proud of everything in the world they did, that they made some mistakes or transgressions or things they should not have done, that they don't want anybody to know about. Now, it could be a drunken party from a frat party that maybe you copped a feel or a girl slapped you, or who knows what it was, but we don't advertise these things. All I'm saying is with this thing with Kavanaugh, yeah, it was 16, 17, 15, whatever it might be. I just have a hard time tying that together 40 years later. I'm having a hard time with that.
If you look at his legal credentials,
Yeah.
his educational credentials, and that's what I look at. All right, it's just like when I voted for Trump. I knew there were some issues in there,
man.
but I looked at his ability to fix problems, and so far my vote has proven to be correct. He has fixed many problems that many presidents said, I'm fixing this, but never got around to doing it. I think that Kavanaugh would make a magnificent Supreme Court justice.
We're going to
and
find
there's
out.
nothing on the legal side that lets me feel differently.
Well, you're
But
in the
you-
minority on that viewpoint, Dan.
We'll find out.
You have to consider, though, the total picture. Look at Les Moon as from CBS.
Of course.
He had a great job. He was a CEO of CBS, but yet he was a sexual predator, whatever you want to call him.
But he did it over and over and over. And
That's
he wasn't,
what I mean.
And he wasn't 17 years old.
But it didn't come out for 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, point is, it happened now. They're finding one. And listen, in defense of us men, if we have too much money, we get in trouble. Luckily, none of us have too much money.
But here's the thing, though. There are women who want your money and will do just about anything to get it. And then when you reject them, they can come back and say, oh, he did blah, blah, blah.
Stormy?
And you get
Some
money
truth to that.
anyway.
You mean Stormy?
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's see if any of these things are going to stick. Nothing so far has.
Monica made a few bucks, didn't she?
Her dress was her
See, but she had proof.
Is it almost time to put this show to bed?
It is.
Almost how much time we got.
We're out. We're basically out of time.
Say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
Until
Bye,
next week.
folks.
Hey, listen, next week will be even more interesting. Greg, you going to be here next week?
Maybe.
You
Good.
should come. You're listening to WPSL Port St.
Adios.
Lucie.